Picture being in her presence, motionless, silent, yet she perceives it. It isn't desire nor intrigue, but something more ancient and subtle. The feeling that your being has substance. Throughout history, people have had persuaders. Many relied on coercion, others on status or wealth, yet the exceptional few, the genuine tacticians, employed their intellect. They understood an unseen principle. Humanity isn't led by facts, but by feelings. When a man masters his emotional equilibrium, he becomes the stability others seek. She detects both security and suspense. She is drawn to it, unable to articulate the reason. This isn't chance. It is the craft of being present. Focus, fundamentally, is a type of capitulation, and the intellect yields to what it cannot readily decipher. These 7 hidden psychological levers are not for seduction or manipulation. They are for consciousness, for molding how you are perceived. When you grasp that feelings can be directed, you cease attempting to snatch focus, and instead you form the environment that invites it. We start with what is widely overlooked, the internal architecture of influence. Hack 1. The Power of Stillness. How silence creates attraction and influence. A single secret subtly forms all human bonds, be they amorous, communal, or business-related. It isn't looks, charisma, or achievement. It is expectation. The human psyche isn't enamored by what it fully comprehends. It grows captivated by what it is actively deciphering. This is the origin of silence's power. In 2019, researchers at Stanford University uncovered a finding regarding our brain's response to ambiguity. As a person awaits a response, a message, or just a look, their brain secretes dopamine, the compound linked to enjoyment and drive. Yet, this is the astonishing element. The brain secretes more dopamine when the outcome is unpredictable than when it is assured. Put plainly, enigma stimulates the brain beyond what assurance provides. This is why quiet, when wielded with composed self-assurance, becomes magnetic. A still moment forms a void that the other's intellect attempts to occupy. Their mind starts to whirl. What's he considering? Why that hesitation? What is the implication? This subtle strain draws their focus nearer, absent any utterance from you. The quiet transforms into its own dialect, one that communicates, "I am at ease. I have no need to hurry." Most men, conversely, react differently. In dialogue, they rush to occupy each void. They overtalk, clarify too quickly, or use humor to sidestep uncomfortable stillness. Yet that anxious chatter fails to forge a bond. It shatters intrigue. Because individuals do not connect with mere sound. They connect to cadence, to effective pacing, to the feeling that an undercurrent exists. Niccolo Machiavelli famously noted that an intelligent man says fewer things than he understands, not to conceal reality, but because he grasps timing. In statecraft, timing establishes command. In personal affairs, timing establishes appeal. An individual capable of pausing, allowing stillness to land, demonstrates internal fortitude. He isn't seeking validation. He isn't acting to gain notice. His composed self-assurance compels others to draw closer. Stillness also alters biochemistry profoundly. When a lull occurs in dialogue, the other's brain activity heightens. Minor measures of dopamine and oxytocin, the connection hormone, are secreted. These compounds amplify concentration, ease, and effective intimacy. This explains why mutual quiet or profound, unhurried discussions seem more significant than incessant talk. The physique interprets calm as security, and security as worth. Therefore, the next occasion you converse with anyone, a companion, an acquaintance, or a stranger, apply the strength of stillness. Communicate with intent, not compulsion. When you sense the urge to occupy the quiet, just inhale. Allow the instant to expand. Permit your composed being to function. Stillness is not a lack of dialogue. It is dialogue in its most unadulterated state. It is the silent self-assurance conveying, "I am at ease with who I am." And that serene energy attracts individuals much more effectively than boisterous exertion. This is not about ploys or deceit. It is about comprehending the psyche's inherent response to ambiguity and effective rhythm. When you cease being afraid of quiet, you transition from pursuing focus to commanding it. You generate intrigue rather than static, fascination rather than clarification. Machiavelli perhaps termed it tactics. Science terms it dopamine equilibrium. Yet in practice, it's more basic, the craft of stillness. Because upon mastering the quiet, others begin to heed you before you even utter a word. Hack 2. The balance of space. How distance keeps desire alive. A subtle reality exists regarding human conduct. When an element is perpetually accessible, the intellect starts to ignore it. This isn't dismissal. It is merely the brain's method of shielding its responsiveness. A group at the University of Zurich illuminated this via their study of oxytocin, frequently labeled the bonding hormone. Oxytocin promotes sensations of attachment, comfort, and confidence. It's the agent that deepens effective closeness via physical contact, purposeful conversation, and mutual presence. But this is the paradox. The more ceaselessly an individual is exposed to another, the less reactive the brain gets to that oxytocin surge. Fundamentally, perpetual proximity blunts emotional acuity. Psychologists term this oxytocin desensitization, a steady decline of affective intensity triggered by excessive exposure. It's akin to hearing your preferred song on loop until it forfeits its power. What previously evoked emotion now blends into the background. In relationships, this manifests plainly. When a man perpetually phones, messages, and appears, he might believe he is proving his devotion, but practically he starts to seem foreseeable. The spark that formerly generated thrill becomes mundane. Comfort supersedes curiosity, and though comfort is secure, it seldom maintains attraction. Compare that to a man who grasps the cadence of connection, who recognizes when to approach and when to retreat. His presence doesn't vanish, it respires. That nuanced gap permits the other's feelings to reset. She starts to miss him, to wonder, to experience the pressure that sustains desire. This is not about engaging in contests. It's about permitting the innate cycles of bonding to progress. Consider emotional connection as the sea. Tides advance and recede. Lacking the ebb, the flow's power diminishes. Excessive closeness, without reprieve, levels the emotional current. This equilibrium is crucial not just for appeal, but for self-sustainment. When a man provides unending attention without a break, he depletes his own psychological resources, especially dopamine, the chemical linked to motivation and fulfillment. Taking distance restores that system. It allows him to re-enter the relationship centered, driven, and attentive. Space does not equal disinterest. It equals emotional regulation. From a woman's viewpoint, this equilibrium is profoundly intuitive. A man who doesn't scramble to answer or pursue every interaction signals something significant: internal stability. He's grounded, not dependent. He respects his personal time and self. That composure fosters trust and, counterintuitively, preserves appeal. The wisdom is ancient. Too much closeness generates emotional interference. A proper rhythm of intimacy and distance generates harmony. Regulated space isn't disengagement. It's effective wisdom. It's the understanding that affection flourishes in rhythm, not redundancy. Make space for quiet. Permit intrigue to flourish. Let the absence magnify the presence. Because when attachment encounters autonomy, when security encounters mystery, that is when appeal ceases to be an effort and becomes a force. Not coerced, not hunted, just inherently vibrant. Hack 3. The resonance principle. How emotion shapes attraction. In the early 1990s, neuroscientists at the University of Parma happened upon something exceptional. While studying monkey brain activity, they identified a cluster of neurons that fired not just when the primate grasped an item, but also when it observed another performing the action. It was as though the brain failed to distinguish between acting and observing. These cells were subsequently dubbed mirror neurons, and they altered our grasp of empathy and human bonding. Later, research at Harvard, UCLA, and Cambridge confirmed this precise mechanism operates in people. Our brains automatically reflect the feelings, motions, and expressions of those nearby. When an individual smiles, our nervous system readies us to smile in return. When an individual scowls, our heart rate subtly alters to align with their stress. We do not merely see emotion, we resonate with it. This occurrence clarifies why emotional energy transfers invisibly between individuals. Lacking any speech, two nervous systems start attuning to one another, like instruments in a single orchestra. Now consider how this manifests between a man and a woman. When a man walks into a room composed, grounded, and self-possessed, her body registers it long before her intellect does. Her respiration slows, her bearing relaxes, her subconscious reflects the emotional stability he transmits. It is not about charisma or smart phrases, it's about the biological cue of safety. But when a man appears stressed, agitated, or desperate for approval, that cue reverses. Her mirror neurons sense the disharmony immediately. She may not understand why, but her body feels disturbed. Her intuition murmurs, "This does not feel steady." No measure of clever dialogue can negate that somatic reality. This is why emotional stability holds more influence than speech. It's not manipulation, it's physiology. People do not react to your words as much as to what their bodies sense around you. Psychologists label this phenomenon emotional contagion, the mechanism by which one individual's affective state diffuses to others. In any exchange, the more stable individual becomes the emotional anchor. The agitated person adjusts, the centered person guides. This is why in relationships, friendships, and even leadership, the individual who stays composed dictates the emotional tone for all others. When you master managing your own emotional frequency, everything shifts. Friends feel heard. Strangers unwind in your company. Romantic partners feel drawn nearer. Not due to your words, but because your calm signals to their nervous system, you are secure. Ages ago, Machiavelli noted that effective leaders mirror their people's mood, not via mimicry, but through consciousness and emotional command. Modern neuroscience validates this. Humans inherently follow emotional exemplars. Your composure acts as a silent summons for others to align with you. For men, this constitutes the core of presence. Presence is not volume or control. It's the quiet assurance that conveys, without speaking, "I am centered," and you can be too. This is why some individuals command attention effortlessly. Their energy feels unified. The brain desires harmony, and we are drawn to those who have achieved it. So when you are with a woman, recall this. Your feelings transmit more loudly than your words. If you are calm, she feels calm. If you are certain, she feels secure. If you are grounded, she feels your gravity, and gravity invariably attracts. That is the resonance principle. Leadership conveyed not via speech, but through the language of emotion and biology. Hack 4. The psychology of rarity. The serotonin effect. Every human being, irrespective of gender or culture, is steered by the chemistry of their brain. Among the numerous agents shaping our feelings, serotonin is notable. It's frequently dubbed the molecule of stability, the silent power underlying our feelings of confidence, pride, and internal peace. But what is seldom understood is that serotonin also dictates how we value objects and individuals. When an item becomes overly obtainable, the brain ceases to secrete as much serotonin in reaction. Simply put, oversupply blunts appreciation. Research from Princeton University showed that the sensation of scarcity, the notion that something is restricted or might be lost, elevates serotonin activity. When the psyche perceives that a cherished connection could vanish, it heightens awareness, retains memories more clearly, and deepens the emotional reaction. In short, what seems scarce becomes psychologically valuable. Our intellects are designed to pursue what is not readily available. This tenet isn't about manipulation or emotional games. It's about the natural operation of human focus. Both men and women are programmed to appreciate what seems finite. Ponder this. If an individual provides constant accolades, ceaseless texts, and perpetual availability, every action begins to lose its significance. The actions merge until they become background static, like music played too loud, too long. But when affection is delivered in phases, measured, deliberate, and sometimes withheld, the brain alerts. Curiosity awakens, expectation mounts, and serotonin rises. The emotional juxtaposition provides the interaction with significance. Ages ago, Machiavelli cautioned, "Unmeasured generosity fosters contempt." Neuroscience now validates his assertion. When we overextend attention, availability, or affection, the other person's brain adapts, responsiveness wanes. Familiarity, though soothing, quietly erodes thrill. The heart requires both solace and contrast to remain vibrant. Scarcity, however, isn't about disappearing or being aloof. It's about equilibrium and timing, recognizing when to provide closeness and when to permit distance. Presence establishes security, but absence stirs imagination. And imagination is where connection solidifies. The mind occupies the intervals with thought, recollection, and significance, all fueled by serotonin's chemistry of yearning. A woman doesn't desire non-stop messages or perpetual reassurance. She desires a cadence of stability blended with enigma. The same holds for men. When one partner is perpetually present, the other starts to underestimate that presence, not from reduced caring, but because the brain normalizes what is constant. Biology favors uncertainty. Serotonin increases when something is perceived as valuable, yet just beyond grasp. In connections, romantic, social, or professional, attention is a currency, and its worth hinges on its restrictions. When you give your time discerningly, each action seems deliberate and holds emotional significance. A thoughtful hesitation before answering, a brief quiet between connection points, can restart the brain's drive of pursuit. You aren't making distance, you're making meaning. The dynamic is straightforward but revolutionary. Presence builds comfort. Absence builds desire. Combined, they create emotional rhythm, the fluctuation that keeps the heart alert. So, when you feel drawn to someone who stays in your mind, even when absent, understand this. They instinctively grasp the serotonin effect. They don't congest the space. They arrange it. That space ensures every word, touch, and shared instant feels meaningful. Scarcity doesn't diminish love. It elevates it. It refines attention into something unforgettable, not given away, but merited, awaited, and cherished. Hack 5. The Power of Composure. Mastering your inner chemistry. Every man has known that intense instant while attempting to awe someone. The abrupt wave of heat, the accelerated pulse, the deluge of thoughts that refuse to slow. You may label it excitement, but the actual event inside your body is the surge of cortisol, the hormone released during stress or ambiguity. And this is the compelling reality. Before you utter a word, others perceive that energetic shift. Research from Harvard Medical School indicates that nuanced signals like shifts in your heart rhythm, physical posture, and muscle tautness frequently communicate more about your feelings than your words or expressions. When your nervous system is stable, people detect it. They feel grounded by your presence. But when it's overstimulated, even with a smile, that agitation transmits. And others instinctively perceive it too. Now let us redefine what emotional detachment truly means. It is not about stifling your feelings or feigning indifference. It is about attaining emotional sovereignty, the capacity to stay in command of your own biochemistry when your surroundings are erratic. It's the silent fortitude of remaining centered when all others are reacting. This is how it functions. When worry or agitation arises, the adrenal glands saturate your system with cortisol, readying you to fight, flee, or freeze. Your heart rate accelerates, your blood pressure climbs, and your breathing turns shallow. While this response is valuable in physical peril, in social settings it signals instability. And instability, biologically, feels insecure. Compare that to the condition of low, steady cortisol. Your actions decelerate, your voice holds calm authority, and your respiration deepens innately. Because humans unconsciously interpret microsignals, minute changes in tone, pupil dilation, or posture, people immediately sense your steadiness. You cease needing to claim confidence. Your physiology declares it for you. Psychologists term this embodied composure, a form of quiet dominance derived from self-governance rather than aggression. When you remain calm amid social strain, you convey something profound. I am not governed by the situation. I govern myself within it. Women especially are extremely sensitive to this. They subconsciously probe how a man manages minor moments of stress, a delay, a difference of opinion, or teasing, not to incite him, but to gauge if his calm is genuine. Because emotional stability signals reliability. It signifies you can manage pressure without deteriorating into reactivity or agitation. So how do you foster this type of control? It starts with mindfulness. Note the initial somatic indicators of rising stress: the constricting chest, the rapid breath, the impulse to rush your speech. When you observe it, halt, slow your actions, speak deliberately, breathe more deeply. This relays a direct command to your nervous system. I am secure. I select calm. With practice, this becomes your default condition. What previously incited anxiety now encounters calm focus. Your body recognizes stability as strength. That isn't feigned confidence. That is biochemical command. Machiavelli might have termed this self-mastery, the discipline to stay still while the world around you shakes. Modern neuroscience terms it cortisol regulation, the physiological basis of authentic composure. So, recall this fact. Emotional detachment is not emotional emptiness. It's emotional regulation, the art of steering your internal condition so your feelings strengthen you rather than weaken you. When you master managing your own chemistry, confidence is no longer something you enact. It is what you are. And in a culture hooked on reaction, the man who stays calm becomes compelling, not because he seeks attention, but because he manifests peace in a sea of chaos. Hack 6. The Art of Selective Disclosure. Awakening Curiosity Through Mystery. A captivating anomaly in human psychology exists, acknowledged by both philosophers and neuroscientists. We aren't hooked on answers. We're hooked on nearly knowing. As per research on the information gap theory from Carnegie Mellon University, the brain secretes dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to thrill and drive, not when we possess all the information, but when we feel we are near to discovering it. That pulse of ambiguity, the void between comprehending and guessing, is what seizes our focus like gravity. Curiosity, therefore, isn't derived from knowledge proper. It stems from incomplete understanding, from the unfinished puzzle our intellects yearn to solve. Now consider how this operates in human bonding. When a man encounters a woman, both are inherently scanning, not deliberately but biologically, for indicators of emotion, security, genuineness, and intrigue. Most men commit the identical error. They reveal everything prematurely. They recount every anecdote, every viewpoint, every feeling in a single extended surge, assuming transparency equals trust. But in this act, they inadvertently extinguish the tension that powers attraction. They eradicate the mystery before it can consolidate. Our brains are wired to pursue incomplete patterns. It's the reason we obsess over a song that concludes abruptly, or a film that cuts to black before the climax. That feeling of incompleteness sustains our imagination, and in relationships, it is identical. An individual who doesn't broadcast every thought immediately becomes a living enigma, and the mind cannot bypass a question it hasn't yet solved. Employing selective disclosure doesn't imply playing games or being untruthful. It implies letting your presence respire, permitting room for intrigue to flourish. When you leave space between the spoken and the implied, you welcome the other to join in mentally, to visualize, to decipher. That mutual participation, that small cognitive exertion, is what builds emotional connection. Regard it as narrative. If a movie exposed its conclusion in the opening scenes, no incentive would remain to continue watching. Suspense isn't derived from concealing truth. It's derived from revealing truth gradually. The identical principle guides attraction. When you permit your history to emerge in pieces, when you provide glimpses rather than full accounts, you transform your life into a story others wish to keep exploring. It energizes the imagination and makes individuals effectively invested in discovering more. So, how do you apply this? Communicate with precision, but don't scramble to clarify all. Share with significance, but not exhaustively. Present your thoughts like chapters, not like addendums. When another person fills the voids with their imagination, they integrate into the narrative, and that shared creation renders the bond deeper and more enduring. This dynamic is effective for all, not solely men. Women who grasp the cadence of disclosure possess equal influence. They don't saturate the space with data. They allow silence to contribute, because what remains unsaid frequently resonates more than what is. Every deliberate omission, every unspoken detail acts as a magnetic interval. It sustains curiosity, it fosters emotional anticipation, a state that dopamine rewards and the heart retains. Selective disclosure isn't about concealment, it's about guiding focus. It's about fostering space for discovery rather than compelling comprehension. Because in the interplay of human attraction, fascination doesn't reside in the known, it resides in the wondered. The most alluring connections aren't formed through full exposure, but through mutual exploration. When you command that equilibrium, the fine line between the revealed and the reserved, you don't merely capture attention, you evoke it. Hack 7. The power of inner alignment. How purpose shapes your chemistry. An indisputable energy surrounds those who understand precisely their desires. You sense it before they speak, in their stillness, their exactness, their silent focus. It isn't enigma or fortune, it's physiology operating in concert with intention. In a 2020 study from the University of Cambridge, behavioral neuroscientists found something extraordinary. People who characterized their lives as purpose-driven, individuals with a clear sense of direction, belief, or mission, showed higher baseline testosterone and more stable dopamine activity. These chemical signatures weren't arbitrary. They were the body's innate articulation of clarity and resolve. Testosterone, well beyond its stereotype, isn't merely a hormone of aggression or maleness. It's the physiological mark of decisiveness, motivation, and confidence in both men and women. It's the agent converting thought to action. Dopamine concurrently powers expectation, focus, and fulfillment. It makes us invest in the journey forward. But herein lies the paradox. When dopamine surges too rapidly, from perpetual novelty, digital stimuli, or approval, motivation fails. Enjoyment without advancement depletes the system. Steady dopamine, conversely, upholds drive. It transforms ambition into persistence. When you operate with purpose, these two agents, testosterone and dopamine, begin to synchronize. Your biochemistry starts to reflect your mentality. You feel centered yet dynamic, resolute yet adaptable. You cease pursuing attention or measuring yourself against others because your physique and intellect already recognize their vector. This is why purposeful individuals radiate calm strength. Their physiology mirrors certainty. Ages before biology could articulate it, Machiavelli saw this reality. He noted that fortune favors the decisive, those who operate with intent rather than doubt. Modern neuroscience now offers the mechanism supporting his insight. A defined goal hierarchy calms cortisol, the stress hormone, bolsters testosterone, and stabilizes dopamine cadences. Purpose, genuinely, erects a chemical defense against turmoil. For men, this alignment frequently appears as clarity of purpose, the discipline to continue without outside validation. For women, it frequently manifests as emotional coherence, the capacity to proceed with intuitive exactness. Varied expressions, identical core, an anchored nervous system that refuses to diffuse its focus. Such individuals possess a calm gravity that attracts others, not via control, but via equilibrium. They become secure havens in an overstimulated world. When purpose wanes, all else follows. Focus shatters, confidence wanes, and emotional reliance intensifies. That is when individuals start seeking significance in others rather than forging it internally. But the instant you re-engage with your direction, the haze dissipates. Validation loses its power. You cease requesting authorization to live with intent. You merely become it. This discipline of alignment isn't about relentless toil or chasing inflexible objectives. It's about preserving a condition of internal order that maintains your physiology in sync with your vision. When your hormones and routines align, composure becomes your standard. Your choices feel easier, your energy more resilient, your presence more compelling. True power, as both science and strategy concur, isn't dominion over others. It's mastery of self, mastery of attention, mastery of emotion, mastery of direction. Purpose is not merely a concept, it's chemistry structured toward clarity. When you attain that condition, confidence stops being an act you perform. It becomes the atmosphere you inhabit. And in a world pulled by constant distraction, the one who proceeds with calm resolve doesn't need to pursue admiration. It inherently finds them, attracted to the quiet certainty of someone who understands exactly their reason for moving. When you integrate these 7 practices, stillness, space, resonance, rarity, poise, disclosure, and direction, you are not deceiving anybody. You are aligning your physiology with your intention. This is the junction where Machiavelli's timeless wisdom meets modern neuroscience. True influence isn't about persuasion. It's about regulation. The one who stays steady while the world shakes becomes the quiet nucleus everyone orbits. If this perspective altered how you view human focus and influence, demonstrate your agreement.